Bungalow Bill here, and welcome back to From the Depths. It's been a long time since I've been in the Livewood Neater series because I was having some severe performance issues. Recently, I loaded up the campaign, and I saw an error that my AI state had been invalidated, and the performance issues were gone, so I'm going to try to get back into this series. And to celebrate, I made a new ship. I called it the Meatball because it's basically just a large chunk of wood on the front-sider with kobold-style guns, so if I go and shrink the blocks, it's all wood up here, and then behind it, it's long 2-clip Tetris APS with barrels that run to the back, so even if the front of the guns get shot off, they'll keep firing until it makes it all the way back to the firing piece. And that's pretty much it. It's got some interceptors, but nothing else. There's no engine power to this. There are no secondaries. It's really just a big brick of firepower. And because I wanted to restrain myself, get a few other ships in battle, maybe 68,000 volume and 6.7% armor cost, so it's going to be quite frail as far as the defenses are concerned. But that's just par for the course, because really to build a large ship out of wood and have a lot of armor, well, quickly going to get outside of the volume limits in Neater. Is still more armored than something I built recently for another playthrough I'm considering doing after this, which has an armor cost of, I believe, 17. Anyway, let's check out the tactical map and see how things are doing, because it's been such a long time. So in regards to the tactical situation, the Steel Striders are neutral. We have the Twin Guards and Scarlet Dawn on our side against the White Flares and Grey Talons. The Deepwater Guard and Onyx Watch are no longer in the game. As far as where the fronts are concerned, I can't really see the Grey Talons that well because I haven't pushed up that far north. And I've been sort of letting the Scarlet Dawn to some extent push some of this area out for me. I think I captured some of these, but not all of these myself. Anyway, it's 22 minutes and 28 seconds until the next council meeting, and I would like to kill the Gorgon. I'm hoping that my meatballs will make it there. It actually looks like they will. So I'm going to push a few fleets out here and try to finish off the White Flares before the next council meeting. Beyond that, I'll probably be fighting everyone after the next council meeting. We'll have to see what happens. But I've got a bunch of ships just sort of waiting by the Twin Guard because I figured that was going to happen. Anyway, I'm going to muster up some fleets and get into a battle with this big pile and the Gorgon. Alright, I saw an enemy trying to escape, so I engaged it before fighting the Gorgon. It's the Disemboweler, very frail armor cost, high particle cannon damage, relatively cheap cost. I'm assuming that there's a lot of overclocking going on to get this to happen. Relatively high top speed at 44 meters per second. To me it looks like a submarine. I've never seen this thing before, so it's a little interesting. At least, yep, those are sonars on top, so has to be a submarine. It is taking fire from the incredible husk. It can fire very vertically. Did not see a lot of blocks fall down. Oh, that time I saw a lot of blocks fall down. I'm surprised it can fire that vertically, but definitely took a hit from APHE there, so not going to be terribly happy. It looks like its particle cannons have disconnected. I'm trying to figure out where those shots are coming from. Oh, they're just interior, I guess? Or can it fire vertically in some fashion? Well, anyway, it's grounding itself. Taking a little bit of sea-whiz fire from the husk, but that's about it. Oh, and there the crams come, although since the enemy stopped moving, we missed by a considerable margin. And there's one of my water skimmers popping in. Let's see the damage that we took. It definitely blew the front off of our ship, but did not really change that much. Since they're made out of wood, most of these are meant to be blown into pieces. The new meatball, not so much, really. And our lasers are firing offensively because we're not using the CWIS here, and we're not using the LAMs here, but they are primarily for defense. Okay, I've spawned in the battle against the Gorgon, which I realized it's smaller than I thought. It's, as the strongholds usually do, it's spawning in last for some reason. The Paper Tiger is actually larger in volume, and I have 3 meatballs here, which is an incredible amount of volume. I'm only spawning one of them in. Turning the volume up high enough to allow for 2 to spawn in might actually be possible, but I still wanted something that can see underwater and maybe provide some point defense. As far as the enemies are concerned, I'm mostly worried about the Martyr if I don't manage to score a hit on it, the Lacerator. There's a few other melee craft around here that might cause me some issues. My ships here really aren't designed to fight a lot of very small things, so we're just going to have to see what happens. So I haven't tested the meatball in battle before, so hopefully it works. Maybe I should bring up the HUD to see if something bad happens. It hasn't fired again yet, and I don't know why it's turning the way that it is. I know it's capable of facing things. Unless this one's broken. Always the fun of Live Wood Kneader is that none of these have been tested in battle. It's possible this one's backwards, but I thought I fixed all of that. No, it's not an auto. All right. That's the other thing that will, of course, do it. Well, hopefully the Paper Tiger's been shredding some enemies. Hopefully, it lost 4%. That's not terrible. Yeah, I forgot that I took it off of auto to at least test its movement. Some shields ruining my fun, although whatever this thing is... Oh, yeah. The Paper Tiger has been absolutely mincing poorly armored white flares craft, even if the meatball has not been doing that much. At the very least, it's been launching interceptors. Unfortunately, they're only medium interceptors because of performance reasons, I guess. Looks like he's taking quite a bit of damage, but at least it's still flying, 6%. There we go, firing some weapons. Now, these are very slow shells, like cram slow, and that might actually be an issue against the white flares. I should probably adjust its detection averaging time. So yeah, it's just taking too much damage from how slow it is, and the fact that it's not really engaging the enemy targets well. But at least the Paper Tiger's just been kind of wrecking them. And it's at least not getting rammed easily, so there's that. Although this is going to cause a lot of issues shortly, probably. Although these ramming designs don't look viable. Although that's not stopping it, apparently. Yeah, definitely not the design to use against the white flares, to be perfectly honest. Could be going a lot worse, but could also be going a lot better. I am considering pulling this one. So instead of elevation mantlets, it has omni mantlets to allow it to aim to the side a little bit. It is giving it some depression issues. It's possible I should allow it a slight pitch to target. I'm launching interceptors. I don't see what they're going after though. Although they probably don't know either. It will launch interceptors against very far away targets. These appear to have no respect for land, but that's just kind of what ships do in From the Depths. What's more amazing is this thing made it so far. I guess it has rams on the bottom, or maybe rubber. Alright, the Gorgon should be spawning in soon. Please don't crash. Okay, it's not as close as I thought it was. Empty text box. Fantastic. Paper Tiger probably hasn't taken much damage, 2%. Well, at least we've been making progress. Hasn't lost much firepower, actually. It's doing pretty well. It has a massive amount of redundancy. It's really not going to be able to fire at these from this angle, though. I think the ground's in the way. I'm going to have to move it. Or have the Paper Tiger kill them. Piercer. Alright. That's actually supposed to be somewhat dangerous. I guess we're spawning in pretty much every other White Flares craft first. We probably hurt ourselves there rather than the enemies hurting us. Yeah, the Piercer's not going to be able to tank that for that long. That's just a lot of firepower. I'm assuming these guys aren't packing that much. That's actually not as low as I thought it would be. Tithe holds, not really an enemy combatant as far as I'm concerned. Let's get you back in there. Man, it sure does damage when it's able to shoot at things. You'd actually be amazed at how much ammo this thing has. I think the consumption is around 15,000 per minute. It's actually pretty astounding. This tail section has one just giant blob of ammo in it that I'm really just hoping never gets hit. When I figured out how large my ammo stores had to be for this thing, I decided just not to worry about trying to make them not chain react, given that I only have wood to build out of. That's the Gorgon spawning in. And hopefully my computer not crashing. Alright, please do your purpose. Well, our railgun shell's already melting some turrets off, but this should be what really kills the Gorgon quickly. Although it might actually kill us faster than we kill it because of our complete lack of armor. The Gorgon herself does not have much armor either. We really need to not shoot something that has any type of lambs, because although we do have very, very large numbers of shells, they'll just get absolutely melted by lambs. And I'm really amazed at how long the meatballs last for in this fight, although we have had kind of overwhelming power here. In terms of cost, we probably weren't that ahead, given that I only spawned in 2 ships this entire battle, and one of them spent its whole time circling around. That'll probably sting a little bit. Our underbelly is not as protected as it should be, but it looks like we still came out okay. But I'm hoping the meatballs can be able to rip apart some of the large Steel Strider's fortresses rather quickly. And that's low health and despawning. So I'm going to go ahead, get to the next meeting, and see what happens. So I'm actually somewhat surprised that there's an option that's not just war against everyone else, but I suppose this is the easy difficulty. I'm also surprised that the Steel Striders have so much spare in their coffers. The amount that they have spare in the coffers is almost exactly equal to the total amount of value I have in blocks currently. I would kind of like one of the options that has 4 people in it, mostly because that'll make sure that everyone actually spends all of their stuff. Of those, I wish I could get the Steel Striders on my side, but I think the issue is they have too much stuff, so we pretty much have to fight against them. One of the important things is that the Twin Guard have to be on the enemy team, which I believe is all of the options. And one of the reasons it has to be this way is that they have the Golden Trench, and I simply have to have the Golden Trench. So, without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and take it. And this is the Golden Trench. I just sort of want to see how many shells we shoot, because it's fun. I did just realize that I didn't retrofit all of the meatballs for the last set of changes that I made to them before... It was before the entire start of this video, I just forgot to retrofit them. But all that it is staggered fire on the missile interceptors and correct settings on the APS, because I had forgot to both lower its accuracy, or its required accuracy to fire down to 0.1%, and set the rate of fire. So some of them are going to be firing slightly faster than they can sustain. Not a lot faster, but enough that there will be a reload pause at the end. Oh yeah, that's a lot of damage. Well, that's weight on weight. Much better. Yeah, that racks up damage pretty fast. Given these shells barely break 300 meters a second, though, it's a little rough on the targeting. I should make sure that I don't have detection off, because it looks like we're targeting random blocks, even though I have my AI set to target clusters. Alright, I believe this is going to be the last battle of the episode. Once I've killed the Alchemist Lair and possibly a Bombardier first, the Raven's Nest is going to spawn in. I've spawned in 1 Incredible Husk and 1 Meatball, which is non-auto. There we go, Cram hits, my favorite. I just love how many shells that is. Only issue about 500mm is just the incredible weakness to lambs when they're pure HE like that. Even when they're kinetic, it's often not great. So I don't use them nearly as often as I'd like to. See, the Raven's Nest is going to spawn in there. Looks like I might not have gotten the Bombardier, so it's just going to be the Raven's Nest. Well, let's see how this goes. I've got quite a lot of backup, but I do not actually know if this is going to go very well. Our incredibly low armor cost... Oh man, I got a blue spinner for a second there. I thought we were facing a crash. Plus actual lambs might make this really bad. Hopefully we'll drain it a little bit on the CWIS fire. Let's see how it goes. Okay, it is not taking the shells out. That's a really good sign. I suppose it would take an impressive lambs to actually take on this quantity of shells. I don't think the husk is going to survive for that long, even though it's not taking the majority of the fire, just the missile fire because of its large radar signature due to its height. 99% still versus 93, so okay, we've been taking damage. We've been doing a lot of damage to it. Missile interceptors have been doing something. At least they probably all fired at once, but that's still better than nothing, because I don't think I retrofitted this meatball because it was in enemy territory. So that's a pretty phenomenal amount of damage to rack up that fast. This kind of APS is just a lot of fun when it actually hits things. I don't think we really took that much damage. I think we shredded pretty much every gun that can shoot back at us from this side of the Raven's Nest pretty quickly. The Raven's Nests are not that scary when you're not on a broadsider that circles around them and continually gets shot at from new guns. Very few of these weapons can actually shoot at us. So we're just absolutely shredding it. Still racking up interceptor damage, so it's still doing something. At some point, we're probably going to get a long pause in fire from the meatball if we haven't killed the Raven's Nest first. Because the cooling limit is something like 100 RPM, and I think the guns fire at something like 90. And I didn't limit the rate of fire to, I think it's 91.4. So at some point it'll pause and recycle. I've retrofit most of the meatballs, just this one was barely in enemy territory. It's not just that it's in enemy territory, it's just slightly more than one tile away from allied territory. I'm going to be really surprised if the Raven's Nest isn't despawning. Actually, it looks like it isn't. It's at 60%, so very close. And now it's AI dead. Fantastic. That went a lot better than I thought it would, although having 1100 firepower in one vehicle and something like 600 in another will dismantle even a Raven's Nest very quickly. So this should make much faster work of some of these larger fortresses than I'm used to. I usually don't put this kind of overwhelming APS firepower into these craft. Especially this very slow shell speed APS, pretty focused against the things it can hit. Phenomenal against them, but does have the slight issue that it can really only hit things that Cram can also hit, so it is competing against Cram, and its DPS per cost is just not as good as Cram is. But the consistent volley fire is nice, because you don't have those really unreliable Cram volleys that will obliterate anything that they hit, but if you're hitting 20% of the time against a smaller target, the volley fire will take it down a lot faster. We can also use Hesh, which Crams don't have. Not that you need it when they penetrate halfway through the armor of a thing first. Well, I'm not going to make you watch this slowly disintegrate because it takes forever, so I'll just do the outro because I believe this is going to be the end of this episode, so I hope you enjoyed watching, and I hope to see you in the future.